I'm Jake Sanderson.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are listening to the Postcast presented by the Locked On Senators podcast and, of course, the Glebe Central Pub. I'm your host, Brandon Piller, joined by Jack Richardson after a tough loss in the nation's capital with Gary Bettman in the house, a 5-2 loss to the Edmonton Oilers. Jack, why is it always us? Anytime there's an embarrassing loss where the Sens have seemingly no effort and they just get absolutely embarrassed at home, it's always us. But you mentioned, Jack, you were getting a couple wins lately, and you said, this isn't really my comfort zone. I'm used to a lot more losses. So here we are, back in your comfort zone, Jack, a 5-2 loss.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is my wheelhouse, Pilsy. I a few seasons I've been kind of helping out, filling in when you guys need another body on the Postcast, and I've been used to some losses, some bad ones too, to talk about. But you're right. Yeah, I had some wins going lately. I had the Bruins game where I said that was the biggest win since 2017. What was that, a week and a half ago?
Yeah,
and then
seems
I had
like forever ago.
The Leafs game last week I was part of as well. I think we had the four of us snapping it around. Vibes were high then. They've lost 3 straight, only 1 point out of 3 games. I don't know, man. Where do you want to start, Pilsy? Because we can break down goal by goal, or we can just start with McDavid and Draisaitl are unbelievable at hockey and focus on the Sens. Because that was, as good as they are, that was abysmal from the Ottawa Senators tonight. Just from the start, didn't look organized. I have so many thoughts about how they came out, how they finished the game, just not good at all on home ice.
Well, and obviously, anytime the Oilers come to town or the Ottawa Senators go to Edmonton, it seems to be the Draisaitl and McDavid show. But it was a different character that got things popping to start this game. Evan Bouchard with the end-to-end goal completely undresses Thomas Chabot and then chips it over Ullmark's shoulder. That was the first shot of the game for the Oilers, if not the second. So Sens fans looking in the mirror and being like, wait, we're getting scored on in the first 2 shots again with a new goalie here. Certainly difficult, but I mean, also with that goal, you just got to tip your cap to Evan Bouchard. Like, that was an amazing offensive play. And Bouchard's one of those guys that he gets a lot of heat from Oilers fans for his lack of defensive play. But when you can pull off moves like that all on your own with no help, kind of makes up for it. But that's not how you wanted this game to start for the Ottawa Senators.
No, and I don't know, like, you don't want Ullmark to have that one, obviously, or you do want him to, but you don't expect him to. It's a breakaway. It's his first shot of the game. Like, Chabot just flat-footed, and it's poetic because I think Chabot was getting a lot of love for his play over the last few games. He looked pretty good in Carolina. His analytics have been really good. He looks rejuvenated beside Nick Jensen. And then that play happens, and it's like, oh, we know this Thomas Chabot. This is the struggling Thomas Chabot we've seen. I don't think he looked, especially bad tonight in terms of how the whole team played, but that play started it off wrong. And it was just poetic again because Bouchard had a really bad game last night for the Oilers in Montreal. And then Chabot's playing super well. And then all of a sudden you start the game, he undresses Thomas Chabot, and then it's Oilers are off to the races. Their big dogs just absolutely bullied the Sens in that first period.
Yeah.
It was a different team. And I know that it's the Oilers, right? They do this to a lot of teams. They're literally generational talents on both with Draisaitl and McDavid, and they do it to every team. So you can't get mad really that it's happening to the Sens, but it's just kind of the context. I think the hype coming into this game was they've got 2 games, or they both got shut out. It's going to be a high flying game. Both teams need a win. They're both facing 3rd straight loss if they lose, and it looked like one team was desperate tonight. And it was the team that played last night, and it wasn't the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah, and a 5-2 loss for the Sens here that got things started off quickly with that Evan Bouchard goal. And Jack, I don't know how you feel about the Zach McEwen and Josh Brown fight, because that was obviously I don't want to call it a stage fight, but it pretty much was, because right off the draw, they drop him. And I actually thought that was one of McEwen's better fights, but unfortunately, it didn't really push momentum in the way that he probably hoped.
No, and we talked about this with the Buffalo game a few weeks ago where Brady fought, and that was a bigger discussion because he ended up sitting for so long and it completely flipped the momentum for the Sabres in that game. And this is different because it's your fourth liner going in. It's a third pairing defenseman. Shout out Josh Brown, Sens legend. But it was a great fight. You're right. Like McEwen did well. I think they were just exchanging blows, and you could see him trying to fire up the bench, and it didn't work. And like, I don't know, man. I like fights. I like fights like that, especially where you're already losing. You need to get the team into it, get the crowd into it. I really like that spot for McEwen, and I think for Josh Brown too, honestly. But it didn't go to the Sens' legs, and I guess that's the gamble. It's either going to or it isn't. But I think the Oilers got more momentum from that than the Sens did. But based on how that period was going, I don't want to even look at that as a turning point. I don't know if you saw that as a turning point, but if anything, I thought it was a reason for the Sens to wake up a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that was Zach McEwen's intention. And, he picked his spot. He picked the right player to go up against, so I don't hate it. And it didn't really give the Sens momentum, but they do score the next goal to make it 1-1. And Tim Stützle has been the Ottawa Senators' best player of the last 4 or 5 games easily, in my opinion. I mean, he worked hard to keep that puck in at the point. Jensen dumped it around and behind the net, and the Batherson heads-up play. He knows Tim Stützle is going to be there. Give it to the German, as Martian would say, the correct German, or at least the German with the black jersey on in this one. And Timmy buries it to make it 1-1. At that point, Jack, are you feeling like that was a momentum booster? Like, are you looking at that goal and being like, all right, it's 1-1. Timmy scored a great goal. Hopefully that gets the building into it. Or was that just kind of like, this feels like it's just stopping the bleeding a little bit?
No, that's a good point. I've kind of forgot that fight happened before Timmy's goal. And I like that you mentioned Stützle, because before we get into the whole team, he has looked, not even just the last 5 games. I can't think of kind of a night where he didn't look like one of the superstars on the team. Like, he hasn't really taken a night off this season. And I think before this, it's not gonna be a carve session, but before we get into the rest of the roster and who didn't have good games, who's concerning me lately, I think Tim Stützle, he's been fantastic this year, in my opinion. I think there's one game I'm thinking of, maybe against the Devils in the second week of the year, where he didn't look like a superstar to me, but that's it. He's been fantastic. So I thought they were right back in it. I really did. He seems to play well against the Oilers. I think he does get up for games against Draisaitl.
I think so.
But lately, what I've liked about him is he's getting up for games with other superstars in the game. They look good against Toronto. Vegas, I think he was okay against Eichel and Stone for the most part. So I'm happy with Tim Stützle's game. It's great that he's putting the puck in the net too, because he seems to have slow starts to the year in his career, and that's not the case goal scoring wise this year for him. So I thought he was great all night, all over it. Him and Batherson are getting some good chemistry. That was the only line that really had anything going tonight. So pretty happy with Tim Stützle's game overall.
And now, as Ron mentions, the goal was scored by the Edmonton Oilers, and this is one of producer Ross's biggest pet peeves. As the PA announcer is announcing a home goal, the PA announcer is trying to fire everybody up. He's doing his extra loud, extra hyped up voice. And then Connor McDavid says, oh yeah, don't forget guys, I'm here. And he taps in an easy goal, which unfortunately starts with Artem Zub trying to make an outlet pass to Pinto. He doesn't get that pass on. Podkolzin, who was all around this game in many different ways, puts low shot on net, and McDavid right there beats out Sandy to put in that goal, and that's an easy one. And I think as soon as McDavid and or Draisaitl get a piece of offense, it's like sharks in the water. Like, you just knew that they were going to get going, and McDavid gets that one. I believe Draisaitl even had an assist on that one too. So like, this was no, Podkolzin and Bouchard. So Draisaitl can get an assist on that one. But like, you just knew once McDavid starts cooking, the Ottawa Senators were in trouble.
I let out an audible sigh when that went in, because I spent a lot of time, like, I would consider the Oilers kind of my second team. And I'm not saying I'm a fan or anything, but I watch them a lot because I've got family in Alberta, and
I mean, McDavid's pretty fun to watch.
It doesn't hurt that they have the best player in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I've seen them. I watched their game against Montreal last night, and the whole time you're watching thinking they're going to break out at some point, and they didn't. And that's, they roll into tonight where they have a chip on their shoulder, and right away they just asserted their dominance. And I honestly thought it was crazy they had both of them together. And this might have been the Sens brain in me going a little bit delusional, but I was thinking, if you're looking at the Sens as an opponent, wouldn't you want to kind of neutralize maybe Tkachuk and Stützle's lines separately by separating McDavid and Draisaitl? But no, I don't know what I'm talking about. They load them up. They each get, I think, 3 points. McDavid gets the game winner, 2 goals in the first period, just all over the ice. And then that leads into that 5-on-3. I'm sure, and I know that the Carolina game, the calls were a story and a headline. I'm not going to nitpick about that call on Giroux. I don't like it, but I guess technically by the letter of the law, it was a penalty. And the Oilers power play, again, like if the Oilers just want to get right, they should schedule the Sens on their season. Stuart Skinner looked amazing. He's been awful all year. Their penalty kill was perfect. They didn't let up a shot on goal. Like, all these things that have been falling apart for the Oilers early on this season weren't true tonight in Ottawa.
I think the Oilers getting shut out in Montreal a night before coming to Ottawa was the worst possible thing that could have happened for the Sens. Not only do you see the Habs get a win at home, but you look at an Edmonton Oilers team that loves to rack up points and points in bunches, and getting a big old 0 up against a bottom feeder team like the Habs, that probably pissed them off and made them want to come out even harder up against the Sens. And they do that. Jack, you referenced the 5-on-3, and if there's one guy to get a penalty on a faceoff and lose his mind about it, it's Claude Giroux, because Claude Giroux loses his mind anytime a faceoff doesn't go his way or refs try to kick him out of the draw or anything. And I think you got the right take on this, Jack. Like, it's okay to be frustrated about it, but I think even the ref is like, look, I got to call that, even though it clearly wasn't Giroux trying to use his glove as an advantage. He was kind of falling down, and then his hand's on his stick. The puck hits his hand there. And they got to call that. And especially when it's literally the draw to start a penalty kill, and you go on a 5-on-3 for a minute and 58 seconds. They were talking about it on the broadcast. What the Senators needed to do was just be like, let's just get this to the next period. Sure, it's still going to be a 5-on-3, but we get a break. Then the faceoffs at center ice, and they're not able to do that. I mean, if McDavid has that much space, I know of all the goals, that's probably the one that you want to look at Linus Ullmark and say you want that back the most. Obviously, I'm not going to get too apologetic for Linus Ullmark here. Everyone knows he's my guy, and we're a hashtag goalie-friendly show. But I can't sit here with an ounce of respect and pretend to back up Linus Ullmark on this one. Like, he has not been good enough. And that's one where it's a shooter. I thought he had a good look at it, but also asterisks on shooter. It's literally the most skilled hockey player alive. So he is going to beat you from time to time like that, but that was one that you really wanted Ullmark to have to be a big momentum boost, and he can't get it. And with 41 seconds left in the period, the Edmonton Oilers go up 3-1.
That is the one that sticks out to me for Ullmark. I mean, the second one, I know it's a bounce, and Zub gives it away in the first place, and then it's maybe bad rebound control from Ullmark, but it's just a rebound, hits off Sanderson, and then goes right to McDavid's stick. But this is the one that you needed him to have, that third goal by McDavid. I know it's Connor McDavid, but look at where he is. It's not a quick one-timer from the slot. He got fooled. He was not ready for a shot because he's not expecting McDavid to take that shot. It's all things considered on a 5-on-3. That's a really low percentage play to take if you're a shooter. And I think McDavid knows that Ullmark knows that. So that's the games that they play. And another, not to keep going back to the Oilers because we're talking about the Sens here, but last night they were passing the puck around like crazy on the power play, and Oilers fans were complaining that they didn't get anything to the net on the power play. So of course the best player in the world just takes a shot and it goes in on a 5-on-3. But yeah, you're right. That's time of the game. You're down by 1. You haven't had a good period. You just need to stop from Ullmark there. You need something. He wasn't the reason they lost tonight by any means. I think it's the first time I've said that where he's let in 5. I think the other games have been on him. But this was the first time where, again, though, didn't put them in a position to win. So that's the other part of this, right? It's we can talk about Ullmark all night because I'm starting to get a little bit concerned because I don't know if the coaching staff has confidence in him. I don't know if they're going to go back to him on Thursday based on how it's been going.
Yeah, and it's tough, Jack, because he's a new guy coming in with big expectations, signs that extension before even playing a regular season game, and team coach starts losing confidence in him. He starts losing confidence in himself, and this thing could spiral out of control. But there's a lot of the season left, so I'm not tossing Ullmark in the recycle bin like we've done with other goalies just yet, but it sure isn't looking good. The vibes are down when it comes to Ullmark and the Ottawa Senators, but a place where the vibes are always high, regardless of how things are going for the Senators, is the GCP, where the vibes are free. You guys know the Glebe Central Pub is the official sponsor of the Postcast. We love the GCP at 779 Bank Street, and they've got the Send Shuttle running this season, of course. And Jack, you're going to be taking the Send Shuttle to the Vancouver game.
Yeah, I got a couple buddies. We're gonna hit up the GCP on Saturday before the Canucks game. Best part about that shuttle, Pilsy, is win or lose, you're getting back downtown fast.
Yes.
I think that's the best part. The worst is sitting in traffic after a loss, leaving the CTC. So the bus is great. It gets you right in front of the arena, right out of the arena fast. Before you know it, you're back at the GCP. It's a great time. Highly recommend if no one's tried it. I'm sure a lot of people have, because at this point, you're missing out if you haven't. So hit up the GCP Sends Shuttle on Saturday.
You heard it from Jack himself. If you want a good time, check out the GCP website. They've got all the shuttle dates there. Leave the keys at home. Don't worry about driving, parking, none of that. Just have a good time with your pals on the Glebe Central Pub bus. Visit them at 779 Bank Street and let them know that the Locked On Senators podcast sent you. It's the GCP, where the vibes are free. This episode is also brought to you by our friends and fans, hopefully, over at Indeed. Guys, when you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring spot everyone trusts. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global visitors. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites. What are you waiting for? Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show, you're going to get yourself a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on the Locked On Senators podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Okay, let's get back into this. A 5-2 loss at the hands of the Edmonton Oilers at the CTC at home with Commissioner Gary Bettman in the house. And if we have people in the chat that were at this game, please confirm how embarrassing it was to have the Stu chants every time Stuart Skinner made a save, not to be confused with the Zoob chants or even to be confused with the boos, and then let's go Oilers chants in the arena. Now, luckily, when those chants were really getting loud, that's when the Ottawa Senators actually scored a goal, a garbage goal that barely was allowed. They had to review it, so pretty much as pathetic as a goal as you can get, but at least it calmed down all those Oilers fans. I did not know, Jack, that there is that many Oilers fans in the area, or maybe they took a bus, the Glebe Central Pub shuttle from Edmonton all the way to Ottawa, but that was shocking to me. We know when Toronto or Montreal comes, obviously that's going to happen, but it's a little sad when it's a team that's, 1, 2, 3 provinces away.
Yeah, like there's no real hate or rivalry between them. So it's a weird feeling. It's not like the Habs.
Especially if you're an Oilers fan. You don't look at the Sens as a rival.
Exactly.
Same rivalry as a hammer and a nail.
Would they beat them in the Canadian division 9 out of 9 times?
Yes.
That year, that's when it all started. It's just been downhill since then. But I think they have a pretty big fan base, and I think a run to the finals, having the best player in the world, is going to help that. They only come to Ottawa once a year, or once a season, so that'll do it. I don't know, like, where do you want to go from here, man? Like, there's a lot of different things we can hit on. I think we can start with that fourth goal by the Oilers, because that is what I wanted to get into with a problem for the Sens, and that is Jake Sanderson. I don't think he's looked good the last 10 games, and there's something up with him. I know I guess he missed the practice for a maintenance day, but it felt like it was a bit of a lull when he was paired with Travis Hamonic. And on that fourth goal, it's Gaudette cheating up on the half wall when they don't have the puck, but Sanderson starts joining the rush when the Sens don't have possession, and that's not a good read, and it costs him. And we've seen a couple where he starts to, it's not in transition, but it feels like big bursts of speed from the forwards are getting him. And he I don't know, like, what do you feel about Sanderson? Because the last 3 games, I think it's when I've kind of started to look at it and be like, I don't know what's going on here. It's not a couple bad games. This is a longer stretch than I was expecting for him to not find his game.
Especially with Artem Zub back. Like, when he was playing with Hamonic, you had the excuse there the whole time and you could look past it. Zub's been back for long enough now that you think they would have found a rhythm together, especially those guys played as much as any defense pair on this team last season. But yeah, that's a tough one, Jack. And you mentioned he kind of steps up to join the rush. Now, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl are on the ice there. Maybe not a great time to try to step up and join the rush. But also, when you're down 3-1, sitting back and playing conservative isn't going to help you score 3 goals to try to take the lead there. So it's tough there, but man, did Leon Draisaitl make that look so easy. So
yeah, he's ridiculous.
Like that, he just like deposited that through Allmark.
He's almost, I think he's tied for the league lead or one back in the league lead in goals. People forget that this guy puts up 50 every single year. McDavid obviously gets the headlines all the time, but the problem I have with that goal is they gave up a 2-on-1 to McDavid and Draisaitl literally 10 seconds before that. It was right after the power play for the Sens. I think the second unit was out there. They do a decent job defending it, block a pass. Then Sanderson and Zub come out and they give up a 2-on-1 again 10 seconds later. It's this problem we're seeing where they give up chances and goals in bursts. And it's just the awareness situationally. Like, I keep going back, but the Oilers always put out that top line right after a penalty. It's all you have to do is watch a game. I don't want to be the watch the game guy, but they did their film study on the Oilers. I'm sure they had to know. You got to be aware of who's on the ice when they're out there, especially against the Edmonton Oilers. And they're going to make you pay when you give them 2-on-1s in the span of 20 seconds.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, you have to have the awareness when those guys are on the ice. But I mean, even when you're aware, they're 2 of the best players in the league. They're probably going to beat you one way or another. You just hope that it's not up against your top shut down pair over and over like that, and you're getting exposed. The Ottawa Senators did have a little burst of offensive chances after that, though. Pinto drops it back to Perron. He steps into a one-timer. Skinner makes a save and holds it. But I thought one of their best chances of the night, Jack, was Amadio gets a step on Bouchard, goes through the middle, and he rips it off the post. And I've never heard a louder F-bomb hit the mics in my life. Like, if people were in the arena, even in the 300s, I bet you heard Michael Amadio just screaming F as loud as he can. Like, that was a tough one, because if that one goes in, at least it feels like there's a sliver of hope, not enough to burst the door open, but at least then it's 4-2, but not the Sens night here, as Amadio can't bury that one.
Yeah, that would have been great to go in. I think Amadio has kind of come on lately. I actually didn't mind him and Pinto tonight. Overall, like, I'm grasping at straws here. No one really played well except for 18 in my mind. But that would have been nice if he just rung it off the post. If that's found a way in, that would have been good. I thought they did a decent job of getting pucks to the net on Skinner. Like, they were in his face looking for bounces, but just no finish on them. And the F's in the chat are great. Like, we had people earlier a few minutes ago saying we should spin the wheel. Are you there yet? I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. That's way too early to me.
I'm not there. People are pestering me about the panic button. I'm looking at it right now. It's calling to me. Like, it's there. It's calling to me. It's shining under the light. I leave it on my desk as a Sens fan. I don't get to put it in my drawer. I would love the day that I take the batteries out of that thing is going to be such a relief, but the batteries stay in it stays accessible at all times. But sorry, guys, I'm not hitting the panic button yet. It's too early in the season. I got to cover this team every day. If I'm hitting the panic button on, what are we, game 18 here, I'm not going to last through this season. So I got to try to hold off a little bit. But my God, is this team tempting me? And people in the chat upset with me for not hitting the panic button. I don't blame you. But it is too soon here. I'm holding on hope that Allmark figures it out. But with the past performances, like they showed, I don't know if you saw that graphic, Jack, on TSN, they were showing the performances by the goalies here. It's either a shutout or a sub 900 save percentage performance. Like, we gotta find a way to meet somewhere in the middle with the goaltending here.
Just stop the leaky goals, like stop the backbreaking goals. And that's why tonight, like, most of it was on the team. There was that one, the 5-on-3, and you need Allmark there. But yeah, it's just stop the leaky ones. Like against Carolina, that first one on Forsberg cannot go in. And those, I don't know, like we're fans, right? We follow the team. We ride the highs, ride the lows as well as we can. But the idea with the new coaching staff, all the veterans that came in, is that the team would be better at riding the highs and lows.
Yep. And they've talked about it. Like it's clearly a thing they're working on in the room.
I'd say they've done a decent job of it.
Yep.
The thing with, like, we're well over midway through November at this point, right? And this has kind of been, I'd say it hasn't been a drastic November for the Sens. This is the first time they've lost 3 in a row. They just haven't won 3 in a row. So they've been a mid-team results wise. But what's bothering me though is just after that game against the Kraken, where they played really well, it was the back-to-back after the Rangers. You've got the players coming out saying it's different this year. We want different stuff this year. Then they go and lose 2 in a row. And then they figure it out, get a couple big wins, Boston, Toronto. Then they've lost 3 in a row. And it's these peaks and valleys that these players, this core keeps going on, that I don't know if, let's say they figure it out and are in a playoff spot in the hunt down in March. I'm getting ahead of myself here, but they were 2 seasons ago. They were 3 points out right after the deadline. Chychrun comes in. They have that game against Columbus where he scores his first goal. We won playoffs. They won 5 in a row or something like that. What happens? They go on the road. They lose 5 in a row. They're out of it. So even if they get through this stretch, if they get through this gauntlet of a road schedule because of the World Juniors in Ottawa, and those teams they have to play on that road trip around Christmas and New Year's is a gauntlet. It'll be brutal. But even if they get out of that, they have to prove it to us. They have to prove to the fan base that they can handle adversity like this, or they can handle pressure. And until they do, I think, not pressing the panic button, but I've seen different stuff this year. We've seen a good team. I wouldn't touch it yet, but maybe a loss on Thursday, we could touch it. I didn't actually know you had a physical panic button. That's awesome.
Oh yeah. No, Jack, I'm not kidding around.
Does it make a noise? Right? I don't want you to press it.
I'm not pressing it. It makes alarming noises. We pressed it last season. It was the first time I pressed it. It's off right now.
Nice.
It's off, but the batteries are in there and it's ready to go. Hopefully not for a while, but oh my God.
Like, I don't know. Do you feel the same way? I'm just kind of there with this. This is a very true tweet, I think. That
read it out, Jack, from Keegan Little, our friend.
Relate to. So Keegan Little says, I hate how much the Sens alter my daily mood. I love this team. I want them to do well. I believe they can do well. When they don't, I get genuinely mad and I stay mad. Like, I myself am not living up to my potential. I just want to cheer for a winning hockey team again. That's a great tweet because, first of all, it's hard as a fan to not ride the highs and lows, right? You wake up feeling better after a win and you wake up feeling not so great after a loss. But the problem is we haven't known winning for so long. Like, nope. I couldn't drive a car the last time this team was in the playoffs, and I've got my own apartment now. Like, it's a grown man. I'm a man. I can't grow a mustache, but I'm a man. So this is the stuff that I think when, it's the off season, we get all hyped about the team. And then other fan bases call us delusional, and they won the August Cup. They won the July Cup. We get made fun of for it, but that's all we have. The Sens fans haven't had anything. So it's frustrating from the team's perspective, from everyone's perspective. And when the team comes out and has a game like this, it kind of amplifies it, I think, for me anyway, where you've kind of put all your eggs in this basket, all the contracts, all the money and everything. And it's, what if it doesn't work and we're stuck here again? That's what I feel after these games. I know it's a bit dramatic, but I'm just, the longer this goes on with this core and these players, I love all of them. They're great hockey players, but it's concerning just because you don't know where they're going to go. And they haven't even, like, I'm ranting here, but
go off.
We make fun of the Leafs, right, for running it back every year with first round exit every year. Like, what are we doing here? What's going on in Ottawa, man? Like, I hate to say it because I don't want to compare them to Leafs ever, because they're a meme of an organization for what they've been doing. But like, the Sens haven't done anything either, and it's been the same guys here the whole time. So at some point, the tables have to turn. And I'm just, the trends that we're seeing in these last 3 games, at least, are really concerning to me. Even though I thought they played well in Carolina. That just went off there. But yeah, that tweet it spoke to me. And it spoke to a lot of people on Sens Twitter because it did numbers.
Yep. Keegan nailed it there, and you had a good assessment of that. 5-2 loss to the Edmonton Oilers. Jack, we're going to try to have 2 SensCentral standouts. But first, we got to let you know that this episode is brought to you by our friends over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. You guys heard me right. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. Best part is you don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off? Which ones aren't? Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on PrizePicks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. Run your game. All right, here we go. Brandon Piller with Jack Richardson, producer Ross running the board and hitting all the buttons. And the Senators were not hitting any good buttons, bad buttons. I was close to hitting the only button I know how to press while podcasting, and that's the panic button. Jack, I will graciously hand over the first SensCentral standout opportunity to you, because I think there's one obvious one, and then I think I can make another one here, but there certainly is not more than 2, in my opinion. Guys, let us know in the chat if you agree.
Yeah, we started the show, honestly, with this, but I'm just going to go Tim Stützle again. Like, for all the questions I'm starting to have about the core that they've assembled here that we've been cheering for the last few years, he's not one of them to me. I'm even more confident with that now. I think he looks like a new player under Travis Green, Mike Yeo, whoever's helping him out there on the staff now. He just feels like he's tougher. He's harder on pucks. I talked about this a lot, I should say, about Stützle, but I think even when things are going poorly, if you can point out and be like, yeah, he's still giving it every night, and he's got his legs, he's all over the puck every single night. I don't know the number, but before the Carolina game, he was top 10 in some defensive analytics. Like, he was doing very,
top
very
10
well.
In points for a little bit, I think.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, he's doing it at both ends of the ice. And so I think even just in a game like this, he deserves a bit of a shout, because every time he was out there, the Sens had the puck, and that's because he's on the ice doing his thing.
Yep, Tim Stützle, easily the best player in this game, as he obviously scored that goal, and he also had a +1, 5 shots, 1 block, and 4 hits. So Timmy did everything you could hope, that he could do in his 19 minutes and 11 seconds. My SensCentral standout is going to be his line mate, Drake Batherson. He had an assist. A great pass on that goal. He was also a +1 in 17 minutes and 8 seconds. I thought Batherson had a couple other good opportunities too. Jensen sprung Batherson for a breakaway at the start of the third period. He tried to do the Draisaitl move, but Stuart Skinner makes a save on it, unfortunately. That's it. Maybe I think some people in this chat are saying Jensen had a good game as well. I would agree with that. We're hoping that there's no lingering effects from him getting kind of driven into the stanchion there by Bod Coles. And thank God they rounded out those stanchions. Otherwise, that turns into a Chara Pacioretty situation all over again. But he seemed okay because, I mean, he was back on the ice. He gets an assist on that Norris goal later on. So that's at least a good sign, because if Nick Jensen, arguably, I don't even think arguably, Jack, you're the best defenseman on this team at a plus 11, especially, and he's looked great. If he goes down, then this is even more of an issue defensively than it already is, because that Chabot-Jensen pair, although not the greatest game as a pair tonight, they have been the stable pair of this back end. Yeah,
he's looked great. And the neck injury is concerning. Like, he was holding that. He looked really uncomfortable. Oh my God, this is
Sanderson and Zub on the bottom of the stat card here.
And how many times has it been not just at the bottom, but that bad at the bottom for those two? It's been too often we've seen Jake Sanderson down that low on this chart. I'm also I know Martian's mentioned that he doesn't understand how it works. I don't either, but
left
I like these
bad,
charts.
Right, good. That's all.
Exactly. And I like these charts a lot because they match up with what we see. Like, look at the top three,
typically
our standouts. Every time the top ones are always the SensCentral Standouts, I find. So pat on the back for us, pat on the back for the Postcast crew. We know Puck. But that, and honestly, I'm not even kidding. I'm not just saying this because I'm seeing him. I thought Travis Hamonic was okay tonight. Like, he made a couple of nice plays just in the defensive zone. He wasn't a problem, I thought. And it shows. Like, defensively, he was fine. Again, matchup matters, I think, but so that's the thing with Sanderson and Zub. Like, they're the shutdown pairing, and they're playing against the two best players in the world right now. But you need better. You need better out of those guys. Pinto needs to be a bit better too. I know he doesn't have the best line mates now, playing in the bottom six, but you just need more.
Amadio and Perron are probably, when Pinto has been a third line center for this team, are the best line mates he's had. Like, when he's had to be a second line center with Norris out, sure, you get one of those top guys in the top six in Giroux or Batherson as his line mate. They still haven't found the sixth forward for that top six. I mean, Ridley Gregg's been okay, but it hasn't really boosted that Norris Brady line as much as you would hope. But yeah, this is a tough way to start off this homestand. Like, even if they lost this, but like had a good effort and you felt like you could build on this, it would be something, but there's nothing to build on in this game. And the big bad Golden Knights are the next opponent. That's into scheduled loss territory, unfortunately. I know it's not great podcasting for for fans, by fans, daily podcast on the Senators, just putting out scheduled loss here. But let's say things go as we expect and they lose to Vegas. Now you're on a 4-game losing streak, and it doesn't get a whole lot easier. Like, Vancouver comes to town. Sure, no JT Miller, who's out for personal reasons. We're not really sure what's going on there, but that's still a good team. They've got Eric Brandstrom. Look out.
Franchise.
Calgary's doing above expectations as well. Like,
there's no nights off in the NHL. Like, there's easier parts of the schedule, sure. And I'd actually say after the Vegas game, their stretch isn't as hard as it's been. They've played they just played the Oilers, who are a cup contender. Carolina's been a cup contender as well. They've already played Vegas. They played Colorado. Like, they've played some hard hockey teams lately. I don't think we should shove that under the rug, but they're still 8-9-1. Like, they're under 500. And that's kind of, even if you told me they were going to be there after the schedule, it's still disappointing. So now it puts even more pressure on the games that they should be winning. Like, I'd label a game against Vancouver. They should win that game. They should win that game on home ice on a Saturday night against Calgary. No, it doesn't matter how the team's doing. You know what I mean? The way I'm seeing it, but the longer they keep losing and the longer these stretches keep happening, and I don't like that that's so close, because it just shows where this fan base is. Not because I don't like it that people are feeling that way. It just, like, we're going again here, and I'd say I'm not pressing it. I'm officially not pressing it yet. Hand is up, but
stand with me, Jack.
It's closer than it's been this season. I think we're getting deep enough in. Like, 20 games is kind of the time you circle. Like, American Thanksgiving is right around the corner.
Here's my question for the people that are begging me to press it here. And I hold a great regard for the panic button. I don't just press it and move on with my day. Like, you have to understand how serious this is. what happens when you press that panic button? Like, when you press that panic button, are you suggesting the season is over and you need to blow the team up? Or is it just you saying you have no confidence in where this team is going and you're kind of folding the book on this season? Like, what is the definition of what happens when you press the panic button? It's kind of like the question, which is kind of a bit of a rhetorical question. There's not really an answer, but it's like the question, what happens when you lose a must-win game? Like, Jack, what for you needs to transpire for you to feel it's time to hit that panic button?
I think, I don't know, because if they lost tonight in a tough game and they don't get a point, or they get 1 point and lose, it's still a 3-game losing streak. And I think if efforts like this continue, then I'm panic button. But what's been nice is for the most part, especially against good teams, they've looked pretty good overall this season. Like even Carolina, 4-0, yeah, but that was I thought they looked better in that game than the score indicated, and the calls just completely screwed them. Like that was a 1-1 game that turned into a 3-0 game because of the officiating. So that was really brutal, and that's why I think when we talked about the Giroux penalty tonight, I'm not as frustrated about it, is because it's more frustrating getting bad calls against you when you're playing well and they cost you versus the other way around. I'm glad that producer Ross put this tweet up from Mark Mathot, friend of the show, saying, not trying to sound dramatic at all here, but the next on the chopping block, if this continues, isn't the coach or the GM or the owner. It'll be a core piece player, and it's going to sting. This team looked disengaged tonight against a tired Edmonton team. Not good. That's what happens if you press the panic button here, because it's a brand new coach. The owner just got everything's fixed.
You've changed everything.
Everything's fixed.
From top to bottom.
We're getting a new rink.
They're working on a new rink. You saw Gary Bettman and Anlauer on the site there already. Like, they are seriously grasping at straws, and they've tried all options. And the issue is, Jack, I think where it gets scary is you've seen the Ottawa Senators do a decent job at acquiring star players, but trading them away, like DeBrincat, you get pennies on the dollar. Chychrun, it ends up working out because you get Jensen, but at face value,
Chychrun
what you
looks
traded
pretty good
to get him
in Washington. He's doing well. Like that was a you got to give to take kind of thing, right? Like that wasn't a win lose. It was a win-win.
Yeah, and the issue is there's a lot of rumors that they tried to move Chabot instead of Chychrun, but that's a tough contract to move. Not everybody is interested in taking on Chabot. The other guy you'd probably be looking at is Norris. That is also a tough contract to move. You cannot trade Drake Batherson. He unless you get a king's ransom back, his contract is too damn good to move on, and you won't get that value back. So I'm not trading Drake Batherson. You're obviously not trading Tim Stützle. You're obviously not trading Brady Tkachuk. I mean, then who are looking at here? Claude Giroux on an expiring deal. If he says, look, this didn't turn out the way I want, trade me at the deadline if this team's out of it. But even then, how big of a return is that? And that's just sad, seeing Claude Giroux come in here with all this hype, have 3 meaningless years, and then leave. Like, what are your options if you do decide you're not trading Ullmark? You just had a goalie signed to 5 years and you dumped him off, and you're still retaining salary for Korpisalo. There's not a lot of flexibility and options. Like you mentioned earlier in the postcast, Jack, this team has locked up their core. And if this core doesn't figure it out, there could be major issues. Even if you mentally decide we're moving on, it's not that easy. So
there's some silver linings, right? I think
let's hear it.
Cap room they have, even with all the deals locked up, like they're not in cap hell, and they won't be next season. Even with Ullmark, I think they just have to sign Giroux and Greg as big deals. Big in quotations, because they won't be as big as anything that they've signed. And I think they'll still have about 15 in room that to sign Giroux and Greg, and then worry about everything else. So they're not up against the cap. It is going to keep going up while these guys are still under contract. So there's room to improve the roster around them. The problem is when you're tied to these guys, they're going to play. And, Josh Norris has 6 years left at 8 million,
7.95. Yeah,
exactly. So they're hard to move. I don't want to trade anyone, to be clear here, but I think just movability, it would have to be Drake Batherson, just because of his contract being so good. That's going to be attractive to a team. But
how do you get better when you move him?
You get worse because they have no right wing depth. They have no right wing depth.
Exactly.
So I think what makes the most sense, if you're going to do anything, is to trade one of these centermen. It's not going to be Stützle. It's probably going to, they'd probably try to do Norris. Like, we're getting way ahead of ourselves here, obviously, but maybe not, because I think that point that Meth was making is a good point. Like, they've done everything. There's a new GM. There's a brand new front office, coaching staff, ownership, new arena. Like, the entire face of this franchise has had a facelift in the last 2 years, except for the players. Yep. So that's kind of where we're at if this goes off the rails, in my opinion. But I think dealing from a position of strength to address a need would make more sense for the Sens if they were going down that route.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens here, because there's a lot of expectations on this team. And this is a team that's not going to have a first rounder either this draft or next draft. So add that on to the misery. You can't even be like, well, we can build through the draft, or we have a first round pick to use as a trade chip. One of those first round picks is going to be gone. It doesn't sound like Andlauer is going to be able to talk his way into at least a lesser punishment. Gary Bettman seems like he's holding tight on that, unfortunately. And this is why we got here. We talked about the panic button. We talked about what happens if this team changes, and Meth mentioned it. It's got to be the players next. It can't be the coach, GM, owner, or arena. All of that is in the works of being changed, or already has been changed. So the Senators are in a tough spot, and a 5-2 loss to the Edmonton Oilers to start off a 4-game homestand does not make things any easier. This team is now 8-9-1 on the season, their first 3-game losing streak of the season. Jack, any final thoughts here? As I'm pretty tapped out on this game. We're going to get producer Ross's opinions on the podcast tomorrow. But Jack, any closing remarks you want to leave the 212 people of the chat here with?
Yeah, shout out to all the sickos sticking around with us. Diehard fans. That's why this keeps going. So thank you for tuning in. My final thoughts. I want to shout out the Hockey Fights Cancer night that the Sens put on. I wanted to get a shout out in for that. That was beautiful. Getting Angie Poirier and her son Nash, I believe I might be mistaken. Yeah, Nash. That was really cool. Really, really cool.
I was getting a little emotional.
I was too.
You could tell how much that meant for that young kid, and his face was so lit up being able to do that. You could tell what it meant for the family. I mean, his mom was close to tears. It was, it's an emotional thing. And, I think that's a good way to leave this, because that was a great night. And I mentioned like the facelift the teams had off the ice, like having the commissioner in town, checking out a land for a new arena with the mayor and stuff like that. Like, this was all foreign to us a few years ago. So that's a bonus. The Sens aren't a tire fire off the ice anymore. So that's the only thing we can hang our hat on right now, because right now on the ice, it's kind of feeling a little bit familiar, but wanted to give that a shout out. Like, how cool was that for Nash? He gets to not only be on the ice with the Sens, he gets to see Connor McDavid, shake his hand, get to meet the best player in the world too. Very, very cool. So the Sens home run to start the game. And when the puck dropped, it all fell apart. But that's, I just wanted to touch on that because it was really beautiful inside the arena. Yeah, I think Amadio was really saying F cancer. They just missed that part. So we'll go with that. Spanish Fleet, thank you. Thanks to everyone that's here, hitting the like button, responding in the chat. I know these are tough times, but misery loves company, and we love having you guys here. So thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Postcast presented by the Locked On Senators podcast. And of course, our friends over at the Glebe Central Pub. Go check them out. GCP at 779 Bank Street. For myself, Brandon Piller, for Jack Richardson, for producer Ross behind the scenes. Thanks for everyone for listening. This has been another edition of the Postcast by the Locked On Senators podcast. We will have another episode tomorrow for you on Apple, on Spotify, on YouTube. You guys know the deal, so check that out. Throw some Go Sens Go in the chat. We appreciate everyone that's here. It's the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.